Many opinions.
I don't think they know what they're doing.
All it does is give the government more power.
One voice. Welcome to the Power Lunch on Ottawa Today with Mark Sutcliffe. It's time to bite into the big topics of the day on 1310 News.
Welcome to the Power Lunch. Our guests today are Sherilyn Starkey, who is a communications and social media expert, and as well the president of Architects DCA, Toon Dreessen. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having
How's the summer going?
Fantastic. What a lovely summer we're having.
Isn't it great?
Fantastic. Great warm.
You could not have planned it better from a weather perspective, right?
I've been in the river swimming almost daily.
In the river?
Oh, yeah, in the Rideau.
In the Rideau River, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
It certainly is warm.
Yeah. Toon, how many times have you been swimming in the Rideau River so far this summer?
That would be zero.
Yeah, me
zero
too.
Times. Yeah, 0 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I've jumped in a lake here and there, but not in the river.
Not even, no.
Yeah,
no.
not even in a lake?
Not even a lake. No, I don't so much swim as sink.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So is swimming your thing?
It's my summer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an Olympic swimmer or anything. I just enjoy it. And it's great for stress, too.
Yeah. And I guess you're celebrating in your family today?
Happy birthday, Mom. Happy 83 years young.
Wow. Happy birthday to your mom. Yeah. So do you feel like the summer has gone by really quickly?
Way too fast.
Yeah.
I was looking at planning out some projects this morning and planning like well into September past Labor Day. I can't believe it's Labor Day coming up so soon.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Labor Day is 2 weeks from today.
Summer's zipped by.
Yeah, I mentioned this, and of course it always goes by fast because we're enjoying it. But I mentioned this last week on the show that I used to always dread the Jerry Lewis telethon.
Yes.
Not because, of course, the cause was tremendous and the telethon was entertaining, but it always meant that summer was over and that we were going back to school once it was done. Right?
I totally agree with you all.
You had this sense of foreboding that I associated with the telethon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, who will be Prime Minister of Canada after the next federal election? A, Elizabeth May, B, Andrew Scheer, C, Jagmeet Singh, or D, Justin Trudeau? I'm listing those in alphabetical order, by the way. And I'm raising this question because yesterday Trudeau officially announced he's running for re-election. I think we all kind of knew that was going to happen. But, Toon, what is your prediction?
I think it'll be Justin Trudeau. I think that the Liberal government's done an awful lot of really good things. I think it takes a while to get sort of the ball rolling in certain things, and I think they've got a really good sense of what they should be doing, and I think another mandate will help achieve that. I just think that it's a bit unfortunate there's not a more credible opposition. NDP certainly plays a bit of that role, but I think the Conservative Party is just sort of so all over the map that I think it's unfortunate we don't get more of a credible dialogue, and it just ends up being too divisive.
Okay. Sherilyn?
I have to agree with that. I think it's Mr. Trudeau's coming in again, although he's going to have a little bit harder run at it, I think. There's been some problems with the free trade and with the Saudi Arabia file that a lot of people are angry about and, embarrassed, really, that Trump's cut us out of the free trade thing. And they're looking to JT to get that solved quickly. And I think if he struggles to get those issues resolved and keep face while he's doing it, he may actually end up in a minority situation.
Yeah. Do you think that you mentioned two very recent issues? What about some of the other issues that have come up in the last couple of years, like his travel and the Aga Khan's Island and things like the broken promise on electoral reform? Do you think those will still be around next fall and relevant, or do you think they'll be long forgotten?
I think that people will forgive that stuff more easily than they'll forgive a big fumble with trade files or economic files. So it doesn't help that those things happen. They kind of add a little momentum to these serious issues, but I don't think that they're going to be key deterrents.
Yeah. Toon, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think those things are things that a generation or two ago, they also happened. And, I think it's the media circus today that makes a bigger deal out of something than it really needs to be. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a good thing, and it wasn't a good thing a year ago or a generation ago, but I think that some of those things are just going to kind of disappear when we really look at the core issues. Yeah, absolutely. Trade is certainly an issue. The spat with Saudi Arabia is certainly an issue. These things are definite challenges, but there's a real sense of change and momentum that's happening. We're starting to see that with investment in infrastructure that we're starting to see happen. And I think that's making a big difference. And these things, unfortunately, they just take time to really roll out.
Yeah, and I also think, number one, the default is that most political parties in Canada, provincially and federally, get a second term. It's pretty unusual that you don't. If you're not going to, then one of two things has to happen. You have to really screw up and have everybody angry at you, or the economy's got to be horrible. And neither of those two things exists yet for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. I think by and large, people sort of like Justin Trudeau, even the people who didn't fall in love with him in 2015. They don't feel like he's really made a mess of the country. And I'm not sure that anybody feels a real strong appetite for change, or that enough people feel a strong appetite for change or have embraced Jagmeet Singh or Andrew Scheer. So to me, that equation adds up to Justin Trudeau getting reelected. And that I think there's also a dynamic where what people say a year and a half before an election, even a year before an election, is one thing. And then when they actually sit down before they vote and consider the alternatives, there is a bit of a default towards the party that's currently in power, unless you feel really strongly that you want to sweep them out.
How strong your appetite for change is. So for us,
it's a lot easier to say, you know what, let's just keep going with what we're doing right now, with all kinds of decisions in life, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to say, I'm not going to change my dentist, I'm not going to change my financial planner, I'm not going to change where I live, I'm not going to change my kid's school. It's a lot easier to go with the status quo than to and I even think about things, when you go on vacation and you think, wow, it'd be really cool to live somewhere else for a while, right? And you even talk to your spouse about it for a little while, and you say, what if we were to live somewhere and do this and that kind of thing. But when it comes right down to it, hauling everything together, moving to another country or city, relocating your family, uprooting your kids, all of that, it's nice hypothetically. It's a lot less appealing when you get down to the practical aspect of it. And that's sort of what happens in an election campaign.
Yes. And I think that we're experiencing and about to experience a lot more change on the provincial front in Ontario. And I don't know if people have enough appetite to want a lot of change going on the federal front at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at some of the really divisive issues on race and racism and the sort of those real core issues that has certainly been surfacing a lot in the media lately, there's a much greater sense of tolerance and welcome to other parties that are more respectful of that and more inclusiveness that I think that the Liberal Party embraces. And I'm not saying that, I think that the Green Party and the NDP embrace those things as well, but I think the likelihood, unfortunately, that the Green Party is going to form the next majority government in Canada is probably pretty slim. I'd love to see them get more seats, but I think that a majority party is going to be tough.
Yeah, if I was putting odds on it, I would say the three of us has the same chance of becoming prime minister in a year and 2 months as Elizabeth May.
Right.
No disrespect to Elizabeth May, but I don't think there is a chance that she can win the next election. It's interesting you talk about provincial politics, and I think the circumstances from that perspective could not be better for Justin Trudeau to have Doug Ford around. For the people who are predisposed to vote Liberal, to have Doug Ford around as a foil, to have Donald Trump around, it really sets up Trudeau very well, I think, from that perspective.
Absolutely.
So, all right, what is shown by Andrew Scheer's decision to keep Maxime Bernier in the Conservative caucus? A, he's afraid to lose Bernier's supporters. B, he doesn't want to look weak and fragile. Or C, he respects the rights of MPs to have their own opinions. Sherilyn?
What did you say B was?
He doesn't want to look weak and fragile.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't need to take this on as a fight right now. He's got other battles that he wants to fight and other issues that he wants to talk about. So I feel that he just wants the story to die in the news so that he can move on to his own agenda. If he fired him, it would be a much, much bigger story.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'd kind of say the same. I mean, I don't really quite get it, but that's probably my gut feeling is answer B as well. He needs to just let this one die, and then hopefully no one will remember it by the time the election time comes around.
When you say you don't quite get it, you don't get why he hasn't kicked him out of the caucus?
Why he's around at all. I don't get Maxime Bernier's position at all. I shake my head. I just literally shake my head. What the hell? I just don't understand it. I don't understand his ideology. I don't understand his comments. I laugh at him. He's such a farcical character that I just can't understand where he comes from.
Yeah, but that doesn't. He was elected MP, so I mean.
So is Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, but doesn't he have a right to those opinions, even if you don't agree with them?
Sure, he's got a right to them. I just don't have to understand them.
Yeah.
Like I can't understand the position he comes from. I mean, I'm an immigrant. I can move to this country when I was 5 years old, 4 years old. And Canada is built on immigration and diversity. And to say that we have enough diversity is bizarre. Like, I don't get that. Like, we need more diversity. We need more people. We need more immigrants. Doug Saunders wrote a great book about this. We need more people here. And I just can't understand Maxime Bernier's position at all.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, and I don't agree with it. But at the same time, I think there's a fine line between an environment where you have members of parliament who speak their minds and say things that people don't agree with, and therefore the party feels like, you know what, that's not somebody who belongs on this team, and an environment where MPs never say anything and never speak their minds, and all they ever do is spout the party talking points. Mm-hmm. And so, on balance, I don't object to Andrew Scheer keeping Maxime Bernier in the Conservative caucus, because even though I don't agree with Maxime Bernier, I think it's a good thing when MPs get to talk freely and aren't kicked out of the party because they just express their views on something. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it's okay. But it is interesting to me, this idea that, diversity is a good thing, but there's a limit to that. It's sort of, would you say that about integrity? Would you say that about honesty? Like, it's sort of, these are, it's not like we're talking about chocolate cake here, where you say, okay, well, chocolate cake's tasty, but you can have too much of it. Diversity, integrity, honesty. Concepts like that. Those are things where, no, there isn't a limit to how much you want to have.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a limit to how much he wants to have.
Yeah, but that's another way of, I think if you espouse that point of view, you're I don't want to speak for Maxime Bernier, but it sort of raises the question of whether you really are in favor of diversity.
Yes.
If you're in favor of diversity, you're in favor of diversity. You're not in favor of diversity with limits.
Right.
So if you think there's a limit to diversity, it's not really diversity you're in favor of.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're going to talk about the prospect of a new statutory holiday to recognize the victims of residential schools when we continue on the Power Lunch.
There's always more to the story. Ottawa Today with Mark Sutcliffe. We'll be right back on 1310 News and Rogers TV.
PowerLunch today, Sherilyn Starkey, digital and social media marketing expert, and the president of Architects DCA, Toon Dreessen. So, should there be a new statutory holiday to recognize the victims of residential schools? A, yes, this is long overdue. B, no, a national holiday is not the right way to honor them. Or C, only if national Indigenous leaders agree on the approach and the date. Toon?
I guess I'd probably go with C with a bit of B. I think that this definitely needs to be a decision that Aboriginal leaders of Canada need to embrace and be supportive of. But I'm really hesitant to say that a new statutory holiday is the right answer. I'd just be afraid of it becoming another shopping day, cottage day, weekend day, long weekend excuse for something. I definitely support a day of commemoration, but I'd rather spend the money that's going to cost and the cost of doing that on actually addressing some of the core issues of housing and water and education and rights and treaty rights. I'd rather deal with that and settle those issues.
Yeah. Sherilyn?
Well, Remembrance Day isn't even a stat holiday, right?
Yeah.
And so...
and there's been a whole debate around that.
Yes.
From the perspective of how... for a very practical debate around whether, if we make Remembrance Day a holiday, whether fewer people will actually mark the occasion as opposed to just using it for a long weekend.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So I just think, yes, we should commemorate it, and we have to recognize the wrong that was done, and we'll never be able to make full reparation for it. But having a holiday, letting tens of thousands of people off work for the day, that's no way to commemorate it. There's much better ways to do it.
Yeah, I suppose the fact that it's there reminds people. The United States, there's Martin Luther King Day, for example, which I think is used as a reminder not just of Dr. King's contributions, but also the civil rights movement. But it's... I think about Victoria Day. Do we spend Victoria Day thinking about Queen Victoria or our relationship with the British monarchy or
we go to the
anything like that? Do we spend Labor Day thinking about the contributions of the labor movement and workers in Canada? No, we use those as long weekends to travel.
Right.
And I think this is another example of symbolism as opposed to action.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we had an interesting conversation about it on the 10 o'clock talk this morning from the perspective that if we actually chose a day on the calendar and said this is Residential Schools Day or something like that, and it was not a holiday, then it would force a conversation in schools. It would force other conversations to take place, like Earth Day, for example, right? When Earth Day falls on a weekday, then teachers are talking about it in the classroom.
And International Women's Day, the same.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. And if Earth Day was, the third Monday in June and everybody got the day off, then people would not be talking about it. They'd just be at their cottages. So, and I think this government, unfortunately, on this issue has talked a good game, but has not shown a lot of action.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to take stock of the plight of many Indigenous people in our country today compared to the day that Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister, not much has changed.
And the level of frustration is rising.
Yeah. And things have to change.
And we need more action, and we have concrete examples of how to take that action, but it's just not really happening. And I think that's a particular opportunity for a new mandate, for new ministers and new leadership to kind of take that on. To actually bring action to some of these things, because they're solvable. We could solve these things, right? We know we can solve them. We know exactly what steps we need to take. We know how to implement it. We've got infrastructure money that we want to spend on things. Let's solve these issues, and let's deal with some of the real core problems.
Yeah. All right. What is the most important issue facing big cities in Canada today? I'm asking this because the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is meeting in Ottawa. So is it A, transit, B, housing, C, gun crime and policing, D, cannabis, or E, infrastructure? Sherilyn?
It's got to be gun crime and policing. I was just looking at the stats for Ottawa this weekend, and I was shocked the increase of gun crime and violent crime in Ottawa just over the last 12 months. And I think I heard some stats over the weekend that Toronto is reaching already the number of murders by, I don't know if it's murders or
shootings.
Or shootings.
Yeah.
Already in August that they had in the whole of the previous year. So it's on the rise, and the rise is steep, and we really need to get to terms with this situation and get it fixed.
Okay. Tom?
I'd say infrastructure, and related closely to that is the procurement of infrastructure. We're spending way too much time and money and effort and energy going in circles, writing supplementary clauses to conditions, to contracts that are causing people to spin their wheels, go bankrupt, trying to service jobs, trying to deliver designs and projects and the money's just sitting there waiting to be spent. We've got affordable housing as infrastructure, transit is infrastructure. You could argue gun crime is infrastructure, right? If we want to solve the actual issues, we need to make more inclusive communities where people feel valued and welcomed and have an opportunity to grow. That's an infrastructure issue. And I think that, unfortunately, we're stuck in a downward spiral of procurement that's really killing the ability to deliver infrastructure properly. And unfortunately, there's the case studies and the laws that are out there for how to do infrastructure better is no one's picking up what's laying on the table. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities has a fantastic guideline on how to do infrastructure procurement better, and it's just sitting there and no one's using it. There's 40 years of case studies in the United States that show how to do this better. Every single state government and the entire federal government has one mandated model for procurement, and in Canada we're like decades behind the times.
Interesting. Neither of you said cannabis.
No, I don't care.
No.
You don't think there'll be any issues around that, the implementation of it?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. The cities are saying there might be.
I know that there's a big change coming ahead with the new legislation, but Canadians, well, people in Ottawa anyway, they got a long history of cannabis use. Like it's they know how to conduct themselves with it.
It's such a non-issue. I really think. It's probably not the most popular opinion, but the way we criminalize what is sort of relatively benign behavior. Somebody wants to smoke a joint or eat a cannabis brownie or something on a Saturday night on their back porch, let them. Just like if someone wants to have.
I think there's a difference between decriminalization and we're going to have stores selling marijuana.
Yeah, but I think that's a solvable issue. I mean, we had the same issues, around a variety of different things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that the way that, whether it's private retail stores or sold in an LCBO type of store, these are solvable issues. And what the cities are struggling with is, I heard Jim Watson this morning on the radio. He was talking about, where to locate them. Well, that's a solvable thing. This is not a complicated issue, is to just kind of create a set of zoning bylaws and standards and say you have to be X distance from a school. And we did this with strip clubs. We did this with, liquor stores. There's a variety of ways of doing this, and just say, you got to be this far from a school and you got to have this many square feet and parking. And these things are all solvable. This is not a big issue.
All right. What is the most surprising story of the day? A New Zealand cabinet minister biked to the hospital to give birth to her child. B, theme park officials in France have trained crows to pick up garbage and cigarette butts. C, Colombian officials are warning tourists that it's too hot for sex. Or D, 16 nurses in the same hospital in Arizona are pregnant at the same time. Sherilyn?
Well, I like the bird litter story. That's a crazy story. But I'm wondering if it's healthy for the birds. I bet you they'll get some activists coming after them for having done that.
Toon?
I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a pretty neat idea. You've got birds that love to pick up shiny things, and great way to get them. You just have to make sure they put it in the right place when they're back. Now, can you get them to sort my recycling and my green bin too? That'd be awesome.
And take care of your green bin. That's because the crows would actually be useful with some of the consequences of having the green bin, like the little bugs and things like that. All right, Toon, Sherilyn, thank you for being on the Power Lunch.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Coming up next, a live update from Washington on the Manafort trial and many other developments.
The Power Lunch with Mark Sutcliffe is brought to you by Water.